What's this little French plane doing in Miami?
Today, we're flying from South America to North America on an Air France A320? Huh? Usually you'll find these planes doing short trips from Paris, but today we'll spend 8 hours on board hopping through exotic Caribbean islands. Why does this flight even exist, and what's it like on board? Allons-y, or as I like to say, let's go.
Hello, jet setters. I'm Jeb Brooks from greenergrass.com. This is the Air France Island Hopper, and you're coming along.
Here's the plan. We'll leave Cayenne at the very top of South America and then fly to Martinique. Then we'll make our way up to Guadalupe and finally on to Miami, all in. That's just shy of 2,400 miles across 3 flights over about 8 hours.
Like, how weird. A flight on Air France from South America to North America. Nothing to do with Paris. It's strange.
So why does this strange thing happen? Well, these places are as much a part of France as Marseille or Toulouse, and connecting them to each other and the wider French-speaking world is an important part of the mission for the flag carrier of France. So, Air France bases a fleet of 2 A320s in Guadalupe, an airport we'll pass through later today. Our flight between French Guiana and Miami operates twice each week. Air France also uses these A320s to connect Belém in Brazil with French Guiana, and even flies from Guadalupe up to Montreal, Canada. Pretty strange, right? But let us know in the comments below, what do you think is the strangest flight out there? First, we have to get to French Guiana, which is not the easiest place in the world to reach. From the US, you pretty much have to go through either Paris or Martinique. So we ended up flying Miami to Martinique on American Airlines, spending a night there in Martinique, and then carrying on to Cayenne the next day on a Dominican airline called Sky High.
Here's your fun fact about French Guiana. It's actually home to the longest border in France, and that's with Brazil.
The Cayenne airport is beautiful and inspired me to do some important self-reflection.
I've been a little confused about what to call this, so I stuck with Air France Island Hopper. I wanted to say Caribbean Island Hopper, but then people in the comments would say it's really pronounced Caribbean, and even though both are correct, we'd still get people telling us we were wrong.
It's obviously Caribbean. Does anyone remember Caribbean amphibian? Frog in a coconut tree.
With plenty of transatlantic service on the board, I was way more excited about trying out the narrow-body regional flights we had planned for today.
Check-in was perfectly smooth. We checked 2 bags, 1 each, all the way through to Miami. I do think we're going to have to get out of the airplane in Guadalupe to clear U.S. security, but we'll see. Only time will tell. But for now, let's go check out the lounge.
The lounge felt a lot like a carbon copy of many you'll find at Charles de Gaulle in Paris. There was even champagne. There were light snacks too, and sufficient seating. But I do suspect this space gets a bit busy when those wide-body flights are ready to depart. We decided to head out when our aircraft arrived.
Now, this flight has been on my radar for so long, and I'm excited to check it out. Kind of like the United Flight 154, the United Island Hopper, or the Alaska Airlines Milk Run. These kinds of flights are super interesting because they serve as a lifeline for these communities. Super excited to check out the Air France Island Hopper.
Pretty soon, we were called to line up and board. Glass jet bridges always look like a great idea, but the tropical heat here turns them into greenhouses pretty quickly. Oh well, it felt good to get on the plane, where we discovered a typical European configuration. The seats are arranged in a 3-3 setup, with middle seats blocked for business class. Now, we booked business class in order to avoid disturbing a third passenger in our row while making this video.
This is so cool. I mean, it is so cool that we are essentially, I mean, it feels like we're in France. It feels like we're flying an intra-European flight, but in fact, we're not. We're flying from South America to North America. It's mind-blowing.
I was grateful to have this pillow and blanket.
It's a pleasure to welcome you on board this Air France Airbus A320 destination for the France 10 Pointe-à-Pitre. We soon be ready for departure. Flight time today 2 hours to reach for the France on arrival through clouds with ground temperature 30 degrees.
Our first leg up to Martinique will take about 2 hours at 36,000 feet. We pushed back, taxied out to the runway, and left the South American continent behind. If you're like the two of us and enjoy strange and wonderful travel adventures, be sure to click the subscribe button so you don't miss any of them.
How about a little tour of the seat? Well, there's not much to see. It's essentially an economy seat, but here in European business class, the empty middle seat is a real bonus. Now, you got a tray table, of course, along with a cup holder. There's a coat hook here and a seat back pocket. Not a ton of leg room, but enough to make a difference. And the armrest moves.
With the exploration of our seat out of the way, I settled in with a good book. There was promised Wi-Fi, but we were still out of range. Once we finally did have access, though, you had to purchase it for each leg. But it was fast. Shortly after we departed, flight attendants were in the aisle with drinks and a hot lunch. We had two options. I chose the turkey fillet served with a green curry sauce, vegetables, and rice. Suzanne went for the vegetarian option, which was the sweet potato puree with turnips and tomato sauce. Neither was particularly remarkable, but we weren't sure we'd get any food on these flights at all, so having hot dishes exceeded expectations in that regard. But anytime there's champagne on board, everything's all right. And you can never go wrong with Gouda. Martinique soon appeared in our windows, and this first leg was quickly drawing to a close. Just like French Guiana, Martinique is a part of France, and this island paradise is well worth a visit. It is a bit easier to reach than our point of origin, given you get service from both Canada and the United States, not to mention, of course, France.
Welcome to Martinique. That's flight 1 down, 2 to go.
Passengers like us continuing on to Guadalupe were asked to remain on board.
Well, we've taken on fuel, and they've cleaned the cabin. They're also offloading some baggage, of course, for the passengers that are staying here in Martinique, and we should be on our way in just a matter of a few minutes. Now, the flight up to Guadalupe is shorter than this last flight, so I'm not expecting a meal service, but we'll find out when we're in the air.
And this leg up to Guadalupe should only take about 30 minutes at 14,000 feet.
I would say about half the passengers got off here in Martinique, and just a few got on, so we're going to be a lot emptier on this next leg.
And I was right, there was no service on this flight at all. It only took us about 30 minutes to cover the 120 miles, a bit faster than that ATR down there. But the weather was building and storms were coming into Guadalupe. We were hopeful that wouldn't affect our schedule for the rest of the day.
Welcome to Guadalupe. That's 2 flights down, 1 to go. That was a short hop for sure, only 30 minutes. But unlike our last stop, we're being asked to deplane here. I think we need to go through some additional security potentially before heading back to the United States.
That was a different kind of procedure. They held all of us who were connecting on through to Miami on the plane while everybody staying here in Guadalupe got off. Once they were off the plane, then we were invited to get off the plane. Our names were cross-referenced against a list, and then we're waiting now in the gate area to get back on the plane and head on to Miami. By the way, we'll let you know exactly how we booked this flight and how much we paid for it once we get to Miami. But for now, let's get back on board.
And it turned out that even though this was a new flight number and everyone on board had to deplane, our next leg up to Miami will be on the same aircraft.
The number of wide bodies operating here in the Caribbean is just amazing. Really is incredible. I had no idea. Next stop, Miami. Are you ready?
Let's board this bird. Again.
Should have left a napkin.
Back on board in our now familiar seats.
Feels like going back in the same seats.
Same plane, same seats, new crew. Next stop is Miami. Now, this is the longest leg, and hopefully we'll have another bite to eat, but we'll find out when we're in the air.
Island hopping's been a ton of fun, but it's time to head back to the U.S. Next stop, Miami.
You know, here I thought there was no power on the plane, but I just found it's right here in the armrest.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Your captain, on behalf of the crew, welcome you aboard this Airbus A320 from Air France. Now fully ready for departure. Flight time today to Miami, 3 hours and 15 minutes. The weather is quite nice for the flight. We do expect the cruise to be smooth.
As he said, this flight should take about 3 hours and 15 minutes to reach Miami at 34,000 feet. As we climbed above the clouds, I pulled out my book, but I didn't have much time to read because service began.
I said earlier, same plane, same seats, new crew. Well, it's the same meals too. Check this out.
But this time we swapped. Suzanne had the turkey, and I tried the vegetarian option. We both went for a second glass of champagne, of course.
Never pass up the desserts and pastries on Air France. They're amazing. So good.
And she followed that up with a cup of tea and, of course, some Biscoff. It's amazing to think we've traveled through this idyllic part of the world, stopping in some of the planet's most beautiful tropical islands, but we never left France. Each of the places we saw today are overseas departments. They follow French law, use the euro. They're even part of the European Union. They're practically as much a part of France as Paris or Nice.
We're beginning our descent down into Miami, so that seems like a good time to use the unscientific Jeb score to rate this experience. Let's take a look at the lounge, the seat, the food, the in-flight entertainment, and the service.
Finding a lounge at all was a surprise to us, and we were glad to have a couple of light snacks and a place to rest before our big day. But it was extremely basic, earning 3 stars. The seat is no different than pretty much any other narrow-body economy seat, but the empty space next to us was invaluable as we filmed. That said, it's pretty standard, and standard means 3 stars. The food on board was another unexpected treat. It was not the most delicious food in the history of air travel, but the fact that there were hot meals at all, well, that earns 4 stars. The in-flight entertainment was lacking. I was glad to have my book, and Suzanne felt fortunate to have downloaded plenty of TV shows onto her iPad. Once the Wi-Fi started working, it was fast, but you had to purchase it for each individual leg. It earns 3 stars. Finally, both crews were friendly and seemed excited we were taking the entire route. They also did not seem fazed that I can't speak any French. They earned 5 stars. Now, we booked this flight directly on the Air France website and paid $1,341 each. That's expensive, but when you're the only game in town, I guess you can get away with that. Anyway, the Air France Island Hopper earns 18 out of a possible 25 stars, but you're not going to book this experience for the Jeb score, but rather so that you can have 8 hours of pure aviation enthusiast fun on one of the most epic flights out there.
Between now and the next time,
On se voit dans le ciel.
see you in the sky.
Oui, oui.
Au revoir.
I don't usually drink Perrier, but when I do, usually in France, it sounded kind of snooty.
I think we're going to be a lot emptier for this next.
Back on board, same plane, same seats. Where next stop is
More champagne. It's the best part of France.